How's it going, everybody? Good morning. My name's Jeff Beer. I'm a writer and editor at Fast Company. And this session's topic is maybe like the most obvious advertising topic ever. How do you stand out? It's like the question brands have been asking themselves since there were brands. My guests today are, we have three marketers here from three very different brands who are incredibly effective and talented at doing just that, though. I'll start at the far end. It's Dan Murphy, who's the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Liquid Death. Taylor Montgomery is the Chief Marketing Officer of North America at Taco Bell. And Fara Howard is the Chief Marketing Officer of GoDaddy. I wanted to just start with the simplest of questions just because it was one of these obvious topics, but how do you define the art of standing out for your brand when you think about that? Like, what does that mean? Dan, I'll start with you at the end.
Yeah, I mean, our North Star is comedy. I mean, we're taking the playbook that Red Bull and Monster did so well in the beverage world, which is entertainment first marketing. Put something out that doesn't smell like an ad, that somebody wants to share with their friends, that press wants to write about for free. And, you know, they did a great job with extreme sports, action sports. Our North Star is comedy. So we try to be the funniest thing in your feed that day. It's a high bar, but we're having a good time doing it.
Nice. Taylor?
At Taco Bell, we like to think about, hey, are we going to hit you in the head or are we going to hit you in the heart? And when we hit you in the heart, do you have a very clear relationship with us as a brand? For us, when we're our best, we're like the life of the group chat. That's what we feel like. We have a very unique persona and a relationship that consumers have with us. So when we hit consumers in the heart, that's what standing out looks like. And are we relevant? Are we there for value? Are we there for different occasions? Are we functionally available for the things that you expect from a restaurant? So for us, if we can do those two things, we're standing out for consumers.
Fair?
My belief is that the way you stand out is by putting your customers in the middle of the brand, right? Like, be willing as a marketer to let other people tell your story, and that's how you stand out. Now, of course, you need to have, you know, to Dan's point, a point of view, right? Whether that's, you know, comedy or you're hitting them in the head or hitting them in the heart, there needs to be some sort of through line that's consistent from a brand standpoint. But I think the brands that I really relate to and have over the years, and I tried to do as well as a lifelong marketer, is be brave enough to put my storytelling in the hands of other people, because nothing's more meaningful than a story that's told on your behalf instead of you telling the story yourself.
Nice. Dan, I have 5 words for you.
Uh-oh.
Adult diaper for dive bars. That stands out. Now, you guys had, so this was the Pit diaper, which was a collaboration with Depends adult diapers. That sold for $75.
Yeah.
And how does the Pit diaper embody your approach? I love that, by the way.
I mean, you know, we often think of Liquid Death as a character in this alternate universe. And so in this world, the scariest place at a metal show is not the pit. It's the bathroom where you're going to slip on puke and there's piss everywhere. So what is the Liquid Death solution in this world where you can stay hydrated and enjoy the pit? Well, that, of course, would be a cruelty-free pleather adult diaper, which we actually make. I mean, so much of what we do is, you know, like the level of authenticity where we make the thing. It's like it would have been a funny video, but then to actually
gotta make the
sell
thing.
them.
That's too good.
Yeah,
of an
they
idea.
sold out in, I mean, maybe an hour and a half. A lot of stuff we do is priced to sell out. And kudos to Depend. You know, we had the thing kind of cut where it's like we could flick the logo off.
You don't hear that every day.
Yeah, no. I mean, we could do it with or without them. They hopped on board. It made it a little more fun and legitimate and weird. And if you go through the comments, we collab posted with them on Instagram. Not one negative comment to Depend. No cancellation. You know, that was the one where I'm like, oh yeah, anybody can partner with us and they're safe.
Nice. Well, one thing, speaking of that, you guys do use collaborations in a pretty unique way. I mean, There was the Yeti casket cooler that was auctioned off for 60 grand. What was it?
68.
68 grand.
Yeah.
And you had a hot fudge sundae flavored sparkling water with Van Leeuwen's ice cream. What else do I got here? Oh,
Elf.
well, of course, Elf Beauty Corpse Paint is a great one. What's the common thread between these? Vastly different products.
Yeah, I mean, our approach is earned media beyond belief. If I tell you what my marketing budget was, I mean, you paid your PR company more than my entire budget last year. So all of this stuff is to find new audiences for free. You know, often we get a lot of support from partners with the hard dollars of it all, but it's to put Liquid Death and something unexpected together to reach a new audience and have fun.
Nice. Well, speaking of, using the product to get people's attention, Taylor, you guys last year did the first Live Más Live, which was basically, and I remember you telling me the story about the idea of, it was kind of the Apple
keynote for tacos.
Apple keynote for tacos. This is it. Yes, like if they can do it for technology, why can't we do it for our food? Because I mean, we're always wondering and sort of conspiracy theories of what the new products were going to be. So why not just lay them out? Last year's was in Vegas before the Super Bowl. This year's was just in Brooklyn. What, last week?
Yeah, last Tuesday.
What did you guys? Tell me a little bit about what Live Más Live, how that ties into the head, the heart, and your relationship with your audience and building that audience.
Yeah, I think it starts a little bit with what Fara was saying. I think it starts with the fans. I mean, the whole insight behind Live Más Live was all of our fans wanted one very simple thing is what are you guys thinking? Why do you launch the things that you do? What are the things that you did that didn't work? They love the brand so much, and it seems so simple, but we were always so afraid to turn the brand inside out. And that's honestly what Live Más Live is. It is a way to invite consumers in, to have a relationship with the brand, and for us to be just really real and raw and vulnerable and authentic about, hey, here, we just honestly need to know if you guys like this or not. So it all starts with the fans, and I think that's what brands, need to do a little bit more of is be vulnerable. If you want to have a relationship with your consumer, if you really want to stand out, do you really see and appreciate the people that love your brand? And are you open enough to really listen and take action for what they're saying? So yeah, the last one was last Tuesday. It was, 4 times bigger than the one before, mainly because we knew what we were doing this time.
Well, I was going to say,
the
what
one
did
that
you guys learn from?
Jeff, we had no idea what we were doing.
Okay, well,
I held it together. We didn't know if anybody was going to watch it. We didn't know if anyone was going to like it. So yeah,
it was cool. It was weird. It was cool,
though. It was very weird.
What were some of the or one of the most significant lessons from the last one to this year?
I think we didn't know who to invite. I think was one big one.
Okay.
It was Super Bowl. Do we want to invite a bunch of athletes? The people that had the most fun were the real fans of the brand. You could hear the audible gasps, when we would talk about something. And so we said, you know what? More of that. Less celebrities, more of that. So we had 420 people at the one in Brooklyn, and I would say 90% of them were all fans. Influencers, TikTokers, people that just love the brand. I think the second thing is we took a lot more risks. The first time was a little bit tighter. There are things that we do a lot about. This time it was a live fire focus group. Depending on how consumers responded to the products and the collabs, it's going to dictate what we do this year. Okay. So we shared a lot of stuff that was really early, and now we're going to go for it.
Farrah, GoDaddy used to get a lot of attention for in a very different way. The banned Super Bowl ads and things like that. This year, as a Walton Goggins fan, it was great to see him with his Goggins goggle glasses.
Yes, Walton Goggins goggle glasses.
How is it? You've been with the brand for 6 years. How is it? What's when you're getting attention for one thing, and now working to get attention for another thing, for another reason? What's that shift like, or what are the sort of the challenges inherent in that? Because there's something. I mean, I'm old enough to be like, when you hear GoDaddy for a while, it's like, oh, I think I know what that brand's about. But now it definitely feels like the brand image and what it stands for and kind of what you guys put out there is very different. And just wondering what that what the challenges are in that.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges in transforming a brand. And so, yes, I joined GoDaddy 6 years ago when I first got the call. I was like, wait a minute, you're about Danica and domains. And
Right.
and they were like, whoa, no, we're so much more than that. And what I learned right when I got to GoDaddy was to your point, if the outside world knew the inside GoDaddy, everyone would be a fan. And I was like, all right, I want to be part of that challenge. But I think it's really important to know your brand intimately and to try to be as consistent as possible while moving forward so that you're not abandoning those who are fans to begin with. And so for us, I mean, being bold, taking risk, partnering with someone as fantastic as Walton Goggins, creating a real and wacky product, super inspired by what Liquid Death has done with their collabs as well. Creating Walton Goggins goggle glasses. If you haven't gone to gogginsgoggles.com, I highly recommend. The product is amazing. But our take was, if we're going to show back up at the Super Bowl, we've got to do something wacky and weird enough that people get pulled into the story. But the story has to be true, has to be authentic, and ultimately it's got to be about the evolution of the products that we're selling.
Right.
And so, for us, being bold, taking risks has been what put us on the map to begin with. Using that playbook, but in really different ways, has been our strategy. And it's been, you got to be in it for the long game. To the marketers in the room, right? This is not, transformation doesn't happen overnight. I've been here 6 years. I'm thrilled with the progress that we've made, but it's been a journey for sure.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge in because one thing I think about, there's never really been a more complicated time to be a marketer, just based on media fragmentation alone. Like, I think, Dan, you and I were talking earlier about, like, you can't just buy eyeballs, you can't buy attention, you can't buy an audience really that's going to stick with you. You can buy an audience for one piece of work, but I mean, obviously some of these will be general, but maybe if there's any specific to your brand or how things have evolved since you've been there, what's the biggest challenge in attracting and keeping an audience right now? Like, is it to be on every platform all the time? Is it to work with a amazing celebrity? Like, what do you find is the biggest challenge, and how are you navigating that?
I mean, some recency bias from having just done a Super Bowl ad with Walton Goggins. It's not one tactic. It's utilizing multiple, right? So Walton launched his business 2.5 months before the Super Bowl and went to market without GoDaddy by design, right? So there's this whole body of work on TikTok, on Instagram, via Rolling Stone, GQ, you name it, driven by him and his awesomeness and the upcoming White Lotus launch, right? Then all of a sudden that gets connected to GoDaddy, where we're advertising on different channels, and the connection, when people connect the dots and feel like they've discovered something, well, then all of a sudden the power of that marketing is so much more, because you've given you've dropped clues across a lot of different channels. Customers have stitched them together, and they're like, wow, now I'm part of that story. Yeah. And so I do think that the expectation of all of us as marketers, I'm imagining a lot of you guys in the room are marketers. I mean, it's harder now than it's ever been, because attention spans are like this short, and there's a new platform every other day. You don't need to be on all of them, but I think the more you can connect your stories across those different platforms, the better off you are.
Yeah. Taylor, how about you?
I would say for the marketers, I think a couple of things from my opinion anyway is, I think the power of ideas is more important than it's ever been before. And I think you can get lost in the sauce on the tactics and how fragmented and how hard it is to reach consumers, but the power of an idea that can transcend channels and reach and connect with consumers is really important. Whether it's the Mexican pizza coming back, we never did a film for that. That was an idea that lived in many different places.
Right.
Live Más Live is an idea. It lives in multiple different channels, but people are engaging with it in a bunch of different ways. And so you have to take the channels into account when you're shaping ideas, but it's really about really core focused insight, an idea that's really big and has a lot of reach, and then it can exist in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways. I think the second big thing is actions. I think a lot of brands talk a lot, but they don't do a lot. And I think these two brands are great examples of actually taking a brand action. And that's what consumers want. If you want to connect with consumers, you want them to pay attention to an idea, you got to do something. You got to create a diaper. You got to create Goggins goggles, right? You actually have to do something to show consumers that you're for real.
Yeah. Dan, we were. Well, I'll let you answer the first question, and I got a follow-up for you.
I would just say, again, it's really almost impossible to buy attention unless you have billion-dollar marketing budgets. So you have to have some content out there that people want. And I think the problem is it's very easy internally to think your content is great when it's really not, when it's just an ad. People don't like ads. Try not to make ads.
Well, to that end, we were talking earlier about how the idea of going on Fallon, for example, is nothing compared to if you got the right idea at the right time, whether it's on social or on YouTube. Tell me a little about that creative process inside your building that uses maybe not virality, but certainly comedy. To your point earlier, but like comedy as the driving metric to get that earned media attention.
Yeah, virality just means it's popular. People like it, right? Yeah. For us, again, North Star being comedy, you can look to places that do it well. The best comedians didn't come from an ad agency necessarily, right? So we use a writer's room approach like Hollywood does. The people in our very small creative team have been paid because they were funny before they came to Liquid Death. They wrote for The Onion. They had an Adult Swim show. We have a network of stand-up comedians, our comic ambassadors, that are literally here in Austin at the Comedy Mothership that pop in to like punch-up sessions and give ideas. And the people that aren't allowed in that room are the non-funny operational people. They are not additive. The joke that I was making earlier is like, imagine, like accounting is really important. You got to get your taxes right. We need a poet to look at these pivot tables and, a couple guitar players to check the macros. And, the CEO who's a graffiti writer really should make sure it's GAP certified. Like, that's how creative is done a lot of places when you really think about it.
Well, one thing about, you talk about no one wants to be advertising thrown at them. A lot of your work actually sort of plays on our relationship with advertising, whether it's the jet giveaway or just like the Elf Beauty. The corpse paint spot was basically like a 90s tween ad. Like how do you think about our relationship with brands when you're kind of forming your own, building an audience for your own brand, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a parody of marketing because marketers have spent maybe trillions of dollars embedding these tropes into people's minds. So we can tap into them. It's familiar and weird and novel, and you pay attention, and it feels like you know what it is, and there's a twist or there's humor involved, and it's fun.
Taylor, you talk a lot about the fans and getting the fans to Live Más Live over, say, celebrities and whatever. You guys, used fans in your Super Bowl spot.
Yeah.
How do you think about that idea, that balance between sort of big A advertising and the more I would say grassroots, but the fan based stuff? How do you guys balance that? Because you guys are a major marketer. There's certain types of, there's the Live Más Live, but then there's the value meal or whatever spots that we see all over. How do you strike a balance between those two approaches?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're a big brand, and we launch new products. We want consumers to obviously know and feel something about them. But I think for us, it starts with just staying really, really true to why we do the things that we do. Yeah. Right? Whether it's a product launch, whether it's an activation, how do we make sure that we're really clear on what's in it for the consumer and what's in it for the fans, not what's in it for us? Like the Super Bowl spot, I would say we bought that ad not for the ad itself, but to show consumers and our fans that the brand belongs to them. So why not dedicate the biggest stage in advertising to them and let, over 3,000 people actually roll through a Taco Bell drive-through for a chance to be in the big game spot. So we try to stay really anchored on what's in it for the fans, and it allows you to still do the things you need to do to talk about products and drive awareness, but fans know that we're giving it to them.
Yeah. Fara, one thing, the Goggins work focuses on the aero platform, the AI sort of base, where you can use AI to help build a website and social posts and other stuff. One thing I've noticed is marketing AI tools has kind of been hit or miss lately. I mean, I think about like the Apple Crush ad or Google's Dear City, where the little kid's fan letter was written by AI, and it gets a little weird. The Goggins approach I found was really cool. How do you think about marketing an AI tool? Obviously, it's for small businesses. It's not about replacing kids' creativity or anything like that. But like, how do you think about? There's marketing the brand GoDaddy, and is there any added layer when it comes to an AI tool?
Yeah, I mean, for us, so if you're not familiar with GoDaddy Arrow, it's a product where if any of you are entrepreneurs, you go in and the tool starts to build your business for you, and then the difference is you get to make it better, right? Like no one wants their business to be built in full by AI, but getting the help of a tool that ultimately saves you a ton of time and helps you find customers, and then you can make it better is the point of differentiation. But for us, what was so interesting, I called it, and I called it wrong. I thought this was going to be the Super Bowl of AI. I thought pet food would be AI enabled. I thought every brand was going to be talking about technology. And what was so interesting was I showed up to a panel on AI for the Super Bowl, and I was the only one there. Yeah, it wasn't a big panel, right? Because everyone had started to pull back. They're like, oh, we're not sure we want to talk about this thing. It's scary. And our belief is that AI can help make you better and also lighten your load. And so for us, we decided to tell the story through a comic lens, right? Like I love the comment that you made earlier when you were talking about the Live Más event in Brooklyn. You're like, we didn't know what we were doing. Well, guess what? Most small businesses, when they're starting their business, they don't know what they're doing either. They know how to do their thing, but they don't know how to do all the other digital things. And a tool like GoDaddy Arrow makes it easier for you, lifts the load. Well, let's not tell that story through like tears and drama, right? Let's tell that story through something kind of ridiculous and awesome and real, like Goggins goggles.
Yeah,
and so that's the approach we employed.
And it didn't take away. It didn't like do everything for him. Like it also
and it doesn't. I mean, it can, to be really clear, but what was awesome is working with Goggins and thousands of other small businesses and watching them use the tool. They're like, ooh, I like this, but I want it to do that. And then you go in and you edit, you make it your own. Just like your own experience in working with AI, to ask questions via ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use, you're using it to learn and then to pivot. And that's exactly what our tool does.
Well, you guys have been doing a lot right. This is why we're here. But I wanted to hear about a lesson or significant lesson from the past year or so from, I'm not going to say failure, could be a failure, or a challenge. Yeah, I mean, what's gone wrong? I mean, there's a lot going right. Obviously, we're talking about that. You guys are doing a lot right. Is there maybe something that didn't perform as well, an audience didn't react the way you thought they would? And what have you taken away from that? Dan, I'll start with you.
I mean, the stuff we put out makes us laugh. So for us, it's never a failure. But there's, content we put out that doesn't get the views other things do. But we kind of employ a stock portfolio, small bets approach. Everything's in-house, creative and production. We'll put stuff out, and usually it's like $30,000 all in. That's what it costs. So if that doesn't get a ton of views, not a real big deal. If we're partnering with a major celebrity, Travis Barker, Martha Stewart, Metallica, like that's a big bet. And so we have to be very sure that that thing is going to make some news and make people happy and laugh. So, we de-risk things again by just doing a lot of content, and it's very efficient.
Like buying a jet to give away?
Oh man, I used to have a fuller head of hair before I started that thing. Mike saw that documentary, Pepsi Where's My Jet? Yeah. It was like 3 years ago. And he's like, we got to do it. We got to get a Harrier. I spent my holiday break sourcing a Harrier. Turns out you learn a lot. You can't, they're all in the UK because that's the people that had that jet. Because they were weapons capable, the Department of Defense has to certify it. We could only afford a non-working one and all that kind of stuff. So it was like a nightmare. Couldn't get it done in time. Then 2 years later, he's like, let's do another jet. And we found an L39C Albatross hangared outside of Chicago, painted it up, called it the dehydrator. Because again, in liquid death land, the only reason you would need this is so you would, sweat and pee your pants and have to drink more liquid death.
Perfect.
Hard to follow the jet thing, We're talking about crunch wraps now. Is that the same as a Harrier jet?
The guy who won it, by the way, afraid of flying. Not a joke.
No,
I think if you're really pushing the envelope, you're gonna fail, Jeff. And that's what I would say for all the marketers in the room. Like, if you are not failing, you're not trying. And I think for us, what we try to do is swing big, swing often, and then just be really, really honest with yourself on when you miss. Last year, we did launch the Cheez-It Crunch Wrap, kind of like a Harrier, 16 times the size of a regular Cheez-It
Right.
and a Crunch Wrap. A lot of hype. The product didn't deliver what consumers wanted to.
Okay.
And I think a lot of brands and companies can spend a lot of time just stuck in the mire and why not? Let's look forward. Let's look backwards, and then we look forward. So then we launched the Cantinas, our early retirement community. We had no idea if that was going to work. One of our biggest activations of the year. And then chicken nuggets was the thing that happened at the end of the year. Just so everybody knows, they did not test well. Taco Bell chicken nuggets did not test well at all. Consumers were like, we don't really want that. I don't really know why you want to do it. And I remember pushing and saying, look, we got to give it a try for 4 weeks. Go with me, and if it's wrong, I'll wear it. If it's right, we're all going to win. It's good, and it was our biggest launch of the year. So I think, look, there's always going to be setbacks. Listen to the consumer, but just keep swinging.
Yeah. Fair.
All right. I'll have a vulnerable moment and just share a personal failure that happened at work weeks ago. So, as I've said repeatedly, love Walton Goggins, love his brand and his business and his partnership with us. And I probably fell in love too hard, right? Like, before the Super Bowl happened, I was like, everyone, we're going dark. Let's say nothing from, February 5th until the 9th, and then we'll have this big reveal with the Super Bowl. And I think that was old school thinking on my behalf. I mean, honestly, it would have been better off to turn the volume up a little bit louder, let the story do the work in advance. If people happen to see the spot before the Super Bowl itself, well, awesome. That just means more people will have seen the work and connected with it. And so, we love data at GoDaddy. And so not only did I think I was wrong, I was empirically proven wrong. And next year, we'll learn from it and we'll do better. And I actually appreciate those types of personal failures, and I own it, talk about it at my company, because, man, if I can fail, then my team can fail, and you're going to take bigger risks and do better things long term. So, yeah, it's but real story from just recently.
Nice. Well, we're talking about the art of standing out, and so that's obviously building and keeping audience. For any marketers in the room that are hoping to do that either more or better, what is one piece of advice you would give? I mean, obviously, you guys have been full of advice here, but wondering one piece of advice, brand agnostic, that you would give a fellow marketer that is maybe wanting to get to the audiences that you guys are building.
You want me to go first?
We'll start in the middle this time.
My advice would be spend a lot of time understanding your brand soul, who you are. If you want to stand out, you got to be real. You got to be authentic. I think for Taco Bell, we're a rebel brand. And rebel brands inspire everyone. It inspires me every day to be a little bit more rebellious, to have a little bit more courage, to be a little bit more fearless. And at the core of everything that we do, we stay really anchored in that, and that's our North Star. So if you want to stand out, you got to be real, you got to be authentic, and it starts with go deep, really understand what's in your brand soul.
Dan?
You're competing with the feed. Find whatever your style of entertainment is. Ours is comedy. You can be education. You can be earnest. Action sports. Doesn't matter. Put the content out there and be honest with yourself. The metrics you should look for are saves and shares. If somebody's going to go back and watch that again, if somebody's sharing that with a friend, there's that viral coefficient. That is telling you you're doing it right. Ignore the haters in the comments. We've all, seen crazy people in life, seen them on the streets here in Austin. You're not going to let them run your marketing. Ignore the haters.
Nice. Fara.
Have conviction in your work, right? And push the people out of the room that their feedback isn't part of the process, because all you're going to do is make a saltine cracker, right? If you ask everyone, do you like it, do you like it, do you like it, do you like it, and you take their feedback, all you're going to do is water down the work. And, You know, if you get pushback from your leadership team on they're like, well, I don't like this, be like, maybe you're not the audience. And so why don't we push this out on an inexpensive platform, throw a little bit of boosting dollars behind it to see if people actually engage with the content. And then if they do more of it.
Nice. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. Fara, Taylor, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.